The great hall of the Galactic Alliance buzzed with whispers and soft laughter. At the center of the room stood Commander Alan West, his back straight and his face calm despite the mocking glances thrown his way. The blue light from the floating, hollow displays washed over his weathered face as he waited for the noise to die down. "You may continue, Commander," said Grand Counselor Zix. The ancient alien's skin was almost see-through, showing the glow of neural pathways beneath. Though Zix's voice was polite, Alan didn't miss the small twitch of the counselor's mouthparts, the alien equivalent of trying not to smile. "Thank you, Counselor," Alan said. He cleared his throat and gestured to the rotating image behind him. "As I was explaining, Earth has developed a new type of ship. We call it the EDS Pathfinder. It works by accessing what we term the 7th dimension. This time the laughter wasn't hidden. It rolled through the hall like a wave. Some of the alien delegates didn't even try to be polite about it. An Arcturian delegate whose 6 eyes blinked in sequence leaned forward. "Commander West, even my species abandoned such childish theories 10,000 years ago. Perhaps humans might benefit from our old textbooks? They would be quite simple for you to understand." More laughter followed. Dr. Lisa Franklin stepped forward to stand beside Alan. Her green eyes flashed with anger, but her voice remained steady. "The mathematics are sound. We've run over 500 test simulations." "Simulations?" barked a being made mostly of floating gas inside a containment suit. "How charming. My dear humans, there is a vast difference between your primitive simulations and actual space-time manipulation." Lisa opened her mouth to argue, but Alan placed a gentle hand on her arm. They had expected this reaction. In fact, they had counted on it. "We understand your concerns," Alan said smoothly. "That's why we're only asking for permission to conduct a real-world test. Under Alliance supervision, of course." The council chamber fell quiet as Zix raised a long, thin arm for silence. "Very well. Earth may continue its theoretical work. Any test flights must be observed by Alliance members. We would not want our newest galactic citizens to accidentally tear apart the fabric of reality." The last words were followed by more chuckles across the chamber. "Thank you, Council," Alan said with a small bow. "Earth appreciates your wisdom and guidance." As the human delegation turned to leave, whispers followed them like shadows. "Such a young species. Barely left their solar system. Think they can just skip the normal development stages." Alan kept his face blank until they reached their small ship docked at the Alliance station. Only when the doors sealed shut behind them did he allow himself to smile. "That went exactly as planned," he said. Lisa dropped into a seat and let out a long breath. "I wanted to tell them exactly where they could stick their guidance and wisdom. Their arrogance is our best shield," Alan reminded her as he took the pilot's seat. "The older a civilization gets, the more set in its ways it becomes." The ship's engines hummed to life. Through the viewport they could see the massive Alliance station, a shining wheel of metal and light that housed representatives from over 300 spacefaring species. Humans were the newest members, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 20 years ago. But the Alliance's welcome had not been as warm as Earth had hoped. Humans were given the bare minimum of territory rights. They were allowed to mine only on barren moons. Their voices in council matters were mostly ignored. It was clear that the older races viewed humans as primitive curiosities at best. "Setting course for Earth," Alan said, his fingers moving over the control panel. "Standard speed. Wouldn't want to surprise them with anything unusual." Lisa rolled her eyes. "Heaven forbid we do anything unexpected." The journey back to Earth would take 3 days at normal speed. The Alliance had granted humans access to basic faster-than-light technology, but nothing more advanced. "For your own safety," they had said. After all, humans were just getting started in space. They needed to be protected from themselves. Back on Earth, in the underground complex of Houston Command, Project Director Gary Mitchell watched the recorded meeting with a grim face. Beside him stood Chief Engineer Samantha Cruz, her arms crossed over her chest. "They laughed at us," Gary said. "Again." "Good," Samantha replied. Her eyes never left the screen where Zix was making another condescending remark about human development. The louder they laugh now, the more shocked they'll be later. Gary nodded and turned to the wall of screens behind them. Each one showed a different part of the real Pathfinder project, not the watered-down version they had presented to the Alliance. "How's our baby doing?" he asked. Samantha smiled for the first time that day. "She's ready. Final systems check completed yesterday. The 7D core is stable and fully functional." Gary's eyes widened. "You mean we're actually ready for a test flight?" "As soon as Alan and Lisa get back, we can begin the real demonstration preparations," Samantha confirmed. "The ship is hidden, exactly where they'll never think to look." On the largest screen, a satellite image showed the swirling storms of Jupiter. Deep within that giant planet's atmosphere, hidden from all Alliance observation, was humanity's greatest achievement. Gary let out a low whistle. "And they have no idea?" "None," Samantha said with satisfaction. "Alliance sensors can't penetrate Jupiter's storms, and they think we lack the technology to hide anything there anyway. Their own preconceptions blind them." The door to the control room slid open, and President Jack Harris walked in. Despite the early hour, he looked wide awake and focused. "I just got word from Alan," the president said. "The Alliance bought it completely. They think we're just playing with theories." Gary couldn't help but smile. If they only knew. "What the Alliance doesn't understand," President Harris said as he looked at the screens, "is that humanity has always developed differently. We don't follow the same paths as other species. We take shortcuts, we think sideways." Samantha nodded. "While they were perfecting warp drives over thousands of years, we looked at the problem completely differently. Why travel through space when you can simply fold it?" On one of the screens, a simulation played showing the Pathfinder in action. Unlike conventional ships that moved from point A to point B, the Pathfinder made space itself bend. Distance became meaningless when you could access higher dimensions. "How long until Alan and Lisa return?" the president asked. 3 days by conventional travel," Gary answered. "Then we briefed them on the final plan." President Harris nodded and stared thoughtfully at the images of Jupiter. "For 20 years we've smiled and bowed and accepted the Alliance's protection. We've been good, obedient newcomers. And for 20 years, they've treated us like children," Samantha added. "Well," the president said with a small smile, "children grow up, and sometimes they surprise their elders." In the simulation, the Pathfinder vanished and reappeared instantly on the other side of the galaxy. Not by moving fast, but by making the very concept of distance irrelevant. The galaxy laughed. "At us today," Gary said quietly. "Let them laugh. Soon enough, they'll understand what humanity can really do." Outside the Houston Command Center, life went on as normal. People walked their dogs, children played in parks, and workers hurried to their jobs. None of them knew that in just a few weeks humanity's place in the galaxy would change forever. All because the older races had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated Earth. Deep within Jupiter's swirling storms, something impossible existed. If any Alliance ship had been able to see through the thick clouds and intense pressure, they would have witnessed a sight that would change their understanding of humans forever. The EDS Pathfinder floated in a protected pocket of calm within the gas giant's atmosphere. It didn't look like any other ship in the galaxy. Its hull shimmered like water, with patterns constantly moving across its surface. It wasn't exactly round or square. It seemed to shift between shapes, sometimes appearing to have more sides than should be possible. Inside the hidden base surrounding the ship, Project Lead Kevin Black watched the final preparations. At 52, Kevin's dark hair was streaked with gray, and lines marked his face from years of work and worry. But today, his eyes were bright with excitement. "All systems are green," called Navigation Officer Michelle Ortiz from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panels as she ran through the final checks. "The 7D core is stable at 97% capacity." Kevin nodded, pleased. "Good. Begin the pre-launch sequence." Around them, the secret Jupiter base hummed with activity. This facility had been built in sections over 10 years. each piece smuggled past Alliance watchers who never thought to look within the violent storms of the gas giant. The Alliance believed humans lacked the technology to survive in such conditions. Another example of how they underestimated Earth. Kevin walked across the bridge to the main viewing window. From here he could see the Pathfinder in all its strange beauty. Unlike other ships that were built to move through space, the Pathfinder was designed to fold space itself. "It's amazing, isn't it?" said a voice beside him. Kevin turned to see Rick Powell, the chief dimensional engineer, standing next to him. Rick was younger than Kevin, only in his late 30s, but his mind had helped solve the puzzle of 7th-Dimensional travel. "Sometimes I still can't believe we did it," Kevin admitted. Rick smiled. "It helps when no one expects anything from you. While the Alliance was watching our official research, we were free to explore ideas they considered impossible." The two men watched as robotic arms moved around the Pathfinder, making final adjustments to its unusual hull. "How does it feel to change the course of human history?" Kevin asked. Rick shrugged. "Ask me after the test flight. Theory is one thing. Actually folding the universe is another." A door slid open behind them, and Dana White, Rick's assistant, hurried in. "They're back," she announced. "Commander West and Dr. Franklin's ship just entered Earth orbit. They'll be here within 6 hours." Kevin nodded. "Perfect timing. Prepare the briefing room. They'll need to be updated on everything we've accomplished while they were distracting the Alliance." In a private observation room overlooking the Pathfinder, Earth Defense Council Chairman Edward Collins stood with President Jack Harris. Both men were silent as they watched the activity below. "Are we really ready for this?" Collins finally asked. "Once we reveal what we can do, everything changes." President Harris nodded slowly. "For 20 years we've been treated like children playing with toys. The Alliance has restricted our development, limited our territories, and ignored our voices. In galactic matters, they claim it's for our protection," Collins said. "No," the president replied firmly. "It's for their comfort. New species with new ideas threaten the order they've maintained for thousands of years." Collins turned away from the window to face the president directly. "If this works, when this works, they'll fear us." "I don't want their fear, President," Harris said. "I want their respect. Humans aren't looking to rule the galaxy. We just refuse to be ruled by it." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. The president tapped his wrist communicator. "Harris here." "Mr. President," came Samantha Cruz's voice. "The 7D core has reached full stability for the first time. We're ready for the preliminary field test whenever you give the word." The two men exchanged glances. "Proceed, Chief Engineer," the president said. "Keep it within Jupiter's atmosphere for now. No need to announce ourselves just yet." "Yes, sir," Samantha replied, unable to hide the excitement in her voice. As the communication ended, Collins raised an eyebrow. "No turning back now." "We passed that point years ago," the president said, "when the Alliance first laughed at our theories instead of helping us explore them." On the main engineering deck, Samantha Cruz gave the order to begin the field test. Unlike conventional ships with huge crews, the Pathfinder needed only a small team. The ship's systems were largely automated, designed to work with the 7D core rather than against it. "All personnel, secure for preliminary field test," Kevin's voice announced over the facility's communication system. "Phase 2 commences in 30 minutes. Engineers and scientists moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing exactly what to do. They had rehearsed this moment hundreds of times in simulations. In the core chamber at the heart of the Pathfinder, Rick Powell made final adjustments to the 7D core, a spherical object about 1 meter across that seemed to contain a small galaxy of its own. Tiny points of light swirled within it, moving in patterns that hurt the eyes if watched too long. "The core is ready," Rick reported. "Dimensional field stabilizers online." Dana White monitored the readings at a nearby station. "Power flow is steady, no fluctuations." Rick nodded, satisfied. "Begin core activation sequence." Around the core, a series of rings began to spin, first slowly, then faster, until they became blurs of light. The tiny galaxy within the core expanded slightly, pressing against the inside of the sphere. Core temperature normal, Dana reported. Dimensional field forming. On the bridge, Kevin and Michelle watched their displays as data streamed in from the core chamber. All systems nominal, Michelle said. The ship is ready. Kevin took a deep breath. Initiate test jump. Keep it small, just 10 kilometers within Jupiter's calm zone. Michelle's fingers moved across her console. Coordinates locked. Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to bend around the Pathfinder. The ship didn't move, at least not in any normal sense. Instead, the space around it folded like paper, bringing 2 points impossibly close together. And then, in an instant, the Pathfinder vanished. All screens in the facility went blank for exactly 2.7 seconds. When they came back online, the Pathfinder had reappeared precisely 10 kilometers from its starting position. A cheer erupted throughout the base. People hugged each other, some with tears in their eyes. On the bridge, Kevin allowed himself a small smile. Position confirmed, Michelle announced, her voice steady despite her wide grin. The Pathfinder is exactly where it should be. All systems functioning normally. Kevin tapped his communicator. Mr. President, Phase 2 is complete. The test jump was successful. In the observation room, President Harris and Chairman Collins watched the celebrating staff below. It actually worked, Collins whispered, awe in his voice. Of course it worked, the president replied. We're human. The impossible just takes us a little longer. When Commander Alan West and Dr. Lisa Franklin arrived at Jupiter Base 6 hours later, they were immediately taken to the main briefing room. There, Kevin showed them the recorded test jump. Lisa leaned forward, her eyes wide. You've done it. You've actually done it. While you were keeping the Alliance distracted, we made the final adjustments, Kevin explained. The ship doesn't just travel through space, it ignores it completely. Alan nodded slowly. And the Alliance has no idea? None, Samantha confirmed. They're still laughing at our primitive theories while we've actually built the ship and tested it successfully. Alan smiled. So what's next? President Harris, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Now we prepare for the real demonstration. The Alliance is holding their Centennial Summit on Proxima Centauri B in 2 weeks. All 317 spacefaring species will be there. Including Earth's delegation, Lisa said, understanding dawning on her face. Exactly. The president nodded. They expect us to arrive in our slow, Alliance-approved ships, ready to accept whatever scraps they offer us in the new territorial agreements. Kevin brought up a new holographic display showing a map of the galaxy with Earth and Proxima Centauri highlighted. Instead, Kevin said, we'll give them a demonstration they'll never forget. Alan looked at the Pathfinder through the window. The galaxy laughed at us, he said quietly. Soon they'll understand exactly what humanity is capable of. And they'll never underestimate Earth again, Lisa added with a smile. The great dome of the Galactic Alliance Summit building gleamed under the light of Proxima Centauri. On the planet's surface below, representatives from all 317 spacefaring species gathered for the centennial discussion of territory and resources. Earth's delegation sat in their assigned area, the smallest section far from the main speaking platform. Commander Alan West and Dr. Lisa Franklin wore their formal Earth defense uniforms, their faces calm despite the excitement they felt inside. Grand Counselor Zix stood at the center of the massive chamber. The ancient being's translucent skin glowed slightly as neural pathways pulsed beneath. Before we begin the formal proceedings, Zix announced, mandibles clicking softly, I understand our friends from Earth wish to present an update on their theoretical vessel. Polite laughter rippled through the chamber. The delegates had all heard about Earth's amusing claims of 7th-Dimensional travel from the last meeting. Alan stood and walked to the speaker's position. His footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet room. Thank you, Grand Counselor, he said, his voice steady. Earth is pleased to announce the successful development of the EDS Pathfinder, a vessel capable of accessing and utilizing 7th-dimensional space. More chuckles spread through the crowd. An Arcturian delegate leaned over to whisper something to his neighbor, who made a gesture that was clearly the alien equivalent of an eye roll. "Indeed," Zix replied, amusement clear in his voice. "And where is this remarkable ship? Still in the simulation phase, I assume?" Alan smiled slightly. "Actually, the Pathfinder is fully built and operational. With the Council's permission, we would like to provide a demonstration." This caught Zix by surprise. The ancient alien hesitated, then spread his long, thin arms wide. "By all means, Commander. We would be delighted to see your achievement." The enormous display screens throughout the chamber activated, showing a view of Jupiter billions of kilometers away. Lisa tapped a small device on her wrist. "Pathfinder. Actual. You are cleared for demonstration." For a moment, nothing happened. The giant screens showed only the swirling storms of Jupiter. Whispers began to spread through the chamber again. Some delegates exchanged knowing looks, clearly thinking this was just another example of human overconfidence. Then something changed. The storms of Jupiter seemed to part, revealing a shimmering object that rose from within the gas giant's atmosphere. The Pathfinder emerged, its surface rippling with geometric patterns that seemed impossible to fully focus on. Several Alliance delegates gasped. Others leaned forward in their seats, suddenly interested. "What we are witnessing," Alan explained, calmly, "is the EDS Pathfinder exiting its hiding place within Jupiter. The ship has been fully operational for weeks, hidden where Alliance sensors could not detect it. On the screens, the Pathfinder now floated completely free of Jupiter's clouds. Its shape seemed to shift slightly as it moved, as though parts of it existed in spaces that couldn't be seen. "Tracking systems active," came Kevin's voice over the communication system. "Preparing for dimensional shift in 3, 2, 1. What happened next would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy." The Pathfinder didn't move in any normal sense. Instead, reality itself seemed to bend around it. For exactly 2.7 seconds, every detection system in the galaxy registered the vessel in all locations simultaneously, as though space itself had been compressed to a single point. The chamber erupted in chaos. Ancient races who had navigated the stars for millennia found themselves confronting something they had believed impossible. Security systems activated automatically throughout the summit building, but the sensors couldn't properly lock onto the Pathfinder. It existed partially outside conventional dimensions. Then, with a slight ripple in the air, the Pathfinder appeared, directly above the summit building on Proxima Centauri b. The screens now showed the ship hovering silently over the very building they were sitting in. Its surface continued to shift and change, geometric patterns flowing across it like liquid mathematics. The chamber fell completely silent. Alan raised his hands calmly. "The Pathfinder has just traveled 4.2 light-years in under 3 seconds. Not by moving through the space between Earth and Proxima Centauri, but by folding that space until the 2 points touched." Zix's translucent skin had paled considerably. This is impossible. Our scientists determined such technology would require a complete reconceptualization of dimensional physics," Lisa finished for him, standing to join Alan. "Which is precisely what Earth has achieved." Outside, the Pathfinder slowly descended, until it hovered just 30 meters above the summit building. Through the clear dome of the chamber, all delegates could now see it with their own eyes. No tricks, no simulations, just the impossible made real. "We understand this comes as a shock," Alan continued. "For centuries, the established races have built upon traditional understandings of space-time. But sometimes, a fresh perspective sees possibilities that experience has learned to overlook." Zix moved closer, his multiple eyes fixed on Alan. "How? How did humans achieve what the Arcturians abandoned as impossible? What the Zeta Reticulans declared a dead-end research path?" Lisa smiled. "Because we didn't know it was supposed to be impossible. Earth was not bound by 10,000 years of established dimensional theory. We approached the problem differently." On the display screens, the view shifted to show the interior of the Pathfinder. Kevin Black sat in the command chair, with Rick Powell and Michelle Ortiz at their stations. The Pathfinder doesn't use conventional propulsion, Kevin explained from the ship. It creates a dimensional fold, a direct connection between 2 points in space-time by accessing higher dimensions. Several delegates had now moved to the windows, staring up at the shimmering vessel with a mixture of fear and wonder. Is this a weapon?" asked a Syrian representative, his feathered crest rising in alarm. "No," Alan said firmly. "The Pathfinder is an exploration vessel. Its purpose is discovery, not destruction." As if to emphasize his point, the Pathfinder's surface rippled again and a small shuttle detached from its side. The shuttle, completely conventional in design, descended slowly toward the landing pad outside the summit building. "If you would like to inspect the Pathfinder more closely," Alan continued, "Project Director Kevin Black and his team would be happy to provide a tour." The chamber erupted again, but differently this time. Delegates turned to each other, some excited, others concerned. The Arcturian who had laughed at Earth earlier now stood perfectly still, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of extreme shock in their species. Zix raised his arms for quiet. It took several minutes for the noise to subside. "Commander West," the Grand Counselor said, his voice no longer carrying any trace of condescension, "I believe we must revisit Earth's status within the Alliance immediately." Alan nodded. "Earth would welcome that discussion, Counselor. As equals." Theo? Emphasis on the last word was subtle but unmistakable. No longer would humans accept being treated as cosmic children. The Pathfinder had changed everything. Outside, Kevin, Rick, and Michelle emerged from the shuttle and walked toward the summit building entrance. Alliance security personnel moved aside, watching with new respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. In the chamber, Lisa leaned close to Alan. "They're not laughing anymore," she whispered. "No," Alan agreed. "Now they're listening." As the human engineers entered the chamber, a path cleared for them automatically. Races that had dismissed Earth for 20 years now watched with rapt attention as Kevin took the speaker's position. "The Pathfinder represents more than just a new method of travel," Kevin said, his voice echoing in the silent room. "It represents a new way of thinking about the universe itself." Above them, visible through the dome, the Pathfinder shimmered against the sky, proof that sometimes the youngest voices have the most important things to say. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's ambitions. Now it held its breath, waiting to hear what humans would say next. The weeks following the Pathfinder demonstration changed everything. Earth, once dismissed as a primitive newcomer to the galactic community, became the center of scientific interest. Alliance delegates who had laughed at human theories now requested meetings, partnerships, and information exchanges. In the main conference room aboard the Pathfinder, now in orbit around Earth, Dr. Lisa Franklin addressed a group of the galaxy's most respected scientists. Beings from a dozen different worlds watched with rapt attention as she explained the basic principles of 7D physics. "The key insight," Lisa said, pointing to a holographic model floating above the table, "was understanding that dimensions aren't just mathematical concepts. They're pathways." An Arcturian physicist whose 6 eyes had once looked at humans with amusement now leaned forward eagerly. "But how did you stabilize the dimensional boundary?" "Our calculations always showed collapse. Within microseconds," Lisa smiled. "That's because you approached the problem from a perspective of controlling the boundary. We instead created a resonance field that moves with the boundary fluctuations." Across the table, Rick Powell added, "Think of it like surfing a wave rather than trying to stop it." The aliens exchanged glances. This approach had never occurred to them, despite their thousands of years of advanced science. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Earth Defense Council Chairman Edward Collins sat with Grand Counselor Zix in the Oval Office. President Jack Harris watched as the 2 officials signed a new treaty. "This marks a significant shift in Earth's status within the Alliance," Zix said, his voice now completely free of condescension. "Full voting rights, unrestricted territory access, and technology exchange programs." President Harris nodded. "Earth appreciates this recognition of our contribution to galactic science," What went unsaid was clear to everyone. The Pathfinder had forced the Alliance to reconsider humanity's place in the cosmic order. The treaty wasn't being signed out of generosity. It was an acknowledgement of a new reality. Zix carefully folded his long fingers together. I must admit we were incorrect in our assessment of human capabilities. A natural mistake, Collins replied diplomatically. Older civilizations often expect younger ones to follow the same development path they did. And yet, Zix said, in just 20 years since achieving faster-than-light travel, humans have completely reconceptualized dimensional physics. It is unprecedented. President Harris smiled. Humans have always been good at taking unexpected paths. Back on the Pathfinder, Kevin Black stood by the main viewport looking down at Earth. Beside him, Samantha Cruz watched the blue planet slowly turning below. They're not laughing anymore, she observed. They never should have, Kevin replied. Their mistake was thinking that age equals wisdom. Sometimes fresh eyes see what experienced ones miss. Around them, the ship hummed with activity. Alliance scientists now worked alongside human engineers, studying the 7D core technology. Under carefully controlled conditions, Earth had agreed to share its breakthrough, not as a gift from a superior race, but as a contribution from equals. What happens now? Samantha asked, her voice quieter. Kevin turned from the viewport. Now we do what humans have always done. We explore. On the bridge, Michelle Ortiz was training a mixed crew of humans and aliens on the navigation systems. The aliens struggled with some concepts, their minds shaped by centuries of conventional space travel. Don't think of it as moving from here to there, Michelle explained patiently. Think of it as making here and there the same point for just a moment. A young Syrian officer, her feathered crest rippling with concentration, suddenly nodded. I think I understand. We're not crossing space, we're folding it. Michelle smiled. Exactly. In universities across Earth, enrollment in physics programs had tripled. Young people who had once seen limited opportunities in the Alliance-controlled Galaxy now dreamed of following in the footsteps of pioneers like Lisa Franklin and Rick Powell. At MIT, Rick gave a lecture to a packed auditorium. Students sat in the aisles and stood against the walls, all eager to hear from one of the creators of 7D technology. The universe reveals itself differently to different observers, Rick explained to the crowd. Earth's greatest contribution wasn't superior intelligence, it was perspective. We saw possibilities and gaps between established theories. A student raised her hand. Will other species be able to build their own 7D ships now? Rick nodded. Eventually, yes. We're not keeping this technology to ourselves. But there's a difference between understanding the principles and truly grasping the mindset that created them. Another student called out, "Aren't you worried that some might use this technology for war?" The room fell silent. It was a question many had thought but few had asked aloud. Rick considered his answer carefully. The Pathfinder technology doesn't lend itself well to weapons. The dimensional field is extremely sensitive to energy discharges. Firing a weapon from within it would be like lighting a match in a room full of hydrogen. He paused, then added, "Besides, once you can fold space itself, borders become meaningless. What's the point of conquering territory when the very concept of distance has changed?" In orbit around Mars, construction had begun on the next generation of 7D vessels. Unlike the Pathfinder, which had been built in secret, these ships were being created openly, with contributions from a dozen Alliance worlds. Commander Alan West supervised the project from a monitoring station. On his screen, he could see teams of humans working alongside aliens, each bringing their unique expertise to the effort. "Progress report?" he asked his assistant. "Hull fabrication is 60% complete," the young officer replied. "The Arcturians have provided a new type of quantum stabilizer that should increase fold efficiency by 22%. Alan nodded, pleased. This was how it should have been from the beginning. Species working together, each contributing their strengths. His communication panel chimed. "Commander West, incoming transmission from President Harris." Alan accepted the call and the president's face appeared on his screen. "Commander, how are we doing up there?" "On schedule, Mr. President. The cooperative approach is working well, President." Harris smiled. "Good. The Alliance Council has just approved the joint exploration mission. Once your ships are ready, you'll be heading to the galactic core, a region previously considered too distant for practical exploration." Alan felt a surge of excitement. "We'll be ready, sir." After the call ended, Alan looked out his viewport at the construction site. Workers in spacesuits moved around the skeletal frame of what would become the EDS Horizon, humanity's first 7D explorer vessel. Back on Earth, Lisa Franklin stood on the roof of the Houston Command Center, looking up at the night sky. The stars seemed different now, not distant points of light but destinations within easy reach. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see President Harris approaching. "Quite a view," the president said, looking upward. Lisa nodded. "It's strange to think that just a month ago all those stars represented places we might never reach. And now distance is just a concept, not a barrier," the president finished for her. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Lisa asked, suddenly. "Revealing the technology, sharing it?" President Harris considered the question. "Knowledge wants to be free, Dr. Franklin. We could have kept it to ourselves, used it to dominate, but that's not who we are." "No," Lisa agreed, "that's not who we are." Above them, a flash of light announced the arrival of an Alliance diplomatic vessel, folding space as it appeared in Earth orbit. The technology was already spreading, changing how the galaxy viewed travel, distance, and connection. "They laughed at us," the president said softly. "Now they're learning from us. I think that's a better outcome than making them fear us, don't you?" Lisa smiled. "Much better." Across Earth, humans looked up at the night sky with new eyes. The galaxy that had once seemed so vast and unreachable now felt like an open doorway, and beyond that doorway lay new dimensions, new discoveries, and new understanding. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as innovators who reminded an ancient community that the universe still held mysteries waiting for fresh perspectives. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's ambitions. Now it learned from Earth's wisdom, and somewhere in the vast emptiness between the stars, the Pathfinder continued its journey, carrying the message that sometimes the youngest voices have the most important things to say.